My mom said the beach house had no room for me this year until she realized I still had the keys. The family group chat had been buzzing for weeks about the annual summer trip to our Cape Cod house, the one my grandmother left to all of us. Well, technically to Mom, but with the understanding that it belonged to the whole family. Mom's messages were full of exclamation points. Can't wait to see everyone. Going to be such a special week. Then 3 days before we were supposed to leave, she sent me a private text. Honey, about this year. The house is pretty full with your brother and Aunt Linda's families. Maybe you could come for a day trip instead. I stared at my phone. I'd requested vacation time 2 months ago. Bought groceries for the meals I always cook. My brother's kids loved my pancakes every morning. I called her. What do you mean there's no room? Well, Aunt Linda is bringing her new boyfriend and his daughter, and your brother wants the master bedroom this year since Stephanie just had the baby. I didn't understand. The house had 6 bedrooms. So where am I supposed to go? Maybe you could get a hotel nearby? Or honestly, sweetheart, you're single. You can go to the beach anytime. This might be more of a family trip. I was family. I'd been scrubbing that house top to bottom every year while everyone else showed up with suitcases. I'd been splitting the property taxes even though I made the lease. I'd been the one who drove up in March to make sure the pipes hadn't frozen. I'll figure something out, I said, and hung up. 2 days later, I loaded my car at 5 a.m. and drove the 4 hours to the Cape. I arrived at 9:30, knowing they wouldn't get there until after lunch. I let myself in with my key. The house smelled like salt air and old wood. I walked through each room slowly. The living room where we played cards, the kitchen where I'd taught my niece to make my grandmother's clam chowder. I went upstairs to my room, the room that apparently didn't exist this year. I grabbed the framed photo of my grandmother from my nightstand. Then I went to the master bedroom and started packing. Every piece of furniture my grandmother had specifically left to me in her will. The antique vanity I'd had restored with my own money, the handmade quilt she'd stitched for my 16th birthday, the wooden rocking chair I used to sit in with her while she told me stories. I'd left them all here because this was our family place. I loaded everything into a U-Haul I'd rented. It took 3 hours. I was sweating through my shirt when I heard cars pulling into the driveway. I walked outside to find Mom, my brother, Aunt Linda, and a crowd of people unloading coolers. Mom's face went white when she saw the truck. What are you doing? Moving out my things. You said there's no room for me, so I figured there's no room for my furniture either. You can't just check grandmother's will. It's all mine. You can have the house, Mom, but the things that actually mattered to her are coming with me. My brother stepped forward. Don't be dramatic. We would have made space. You had space. 6 bedrooms. You just decided I wasn't worth it. I looked at my mom. You know what's funny? Grandmother told me before she died that she wanted me to have the house. The whole house. But I convinced her to leave it to you instead because I thought we should all share it. As a family. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Honey, I didn't mean... The locks will be changed by Monday, I said, dropping my copy of the keys at her feet. Have a special week. I climbed into the U-Haul and started the engine. Through the mirror, I watched them standing in the driveway, surrounded by their vacation luggage, staring at the empty house they'd have to furnish themselves now. My phone buzzed. Text from Aunt Linda. You're being selfish. Then my brother. Real mature. Then Mom. Please come back. We can talk about this. I turned my phone off. I had a 4-hour drive ahead of me, and for the first time in years, I felt light. I didn't know what I'd do with a U-Haul full of furniture and nowhere to put it yet. But I knew one thing. I'd never spend another summer making myself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable. The drive back felt longer than 4 hours. Every mile marker reminded me of all the trips I'd made to that house. Alone. To fix broken shutters in November. To rake leaves before Thanksgiving. To make sure everything was perfect before everyone descended for the holidays. I treated that place like it was mine to care for. Because I thought that's what family did. Around hour 2, I pulled into a rest stop. My hands were shaking. Not from anger anymore. From something else. Relief, maybe. Or terror at what I'd just done. I bought terrible coffee from a vending machine and sat at a plastic table watching families load and unload from minivans. A little girl dropped her ice cream and her dad immediately bought her another one. Such a small thing. But I couldn't remember the last time someone in my family had done something that simple for me without making me earn it first. My phone was still off. I knew what would be waiting when I turned it back on. Voicemails from Mom, crying about how I'd ruined everything. Texts from my brother calling me vindictive. Messages from Aunt Linda about family loyalty and forgiveness. They'd tell me I overreacted, that I took things too personally, that they were going to make room for me eventually, but they weren't. I'd heard my brother on the phone with Mom 2 weeks ago. He didn't know I was in the next room. She's always been too sensitive, he'd said. Besides, it's not like she has kids to worry about. She can be flexible. Like being single meant I didn't deserve space. Like not having children meant my time didn't matter. I got back in the U-Haul. 3 hours to go. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, it was almost 7:00 p.m. I stared at the building. My 1-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor. No elevator. I'd have to figure out storage. The furniture wouldn't fit. I sat in the truck for 20 minutes, suddenly exhausted. What had I done? I'd just blown up my entire family over a vacation house. No, that wasn't right. They'd blown it up when they decided I didn't matter enough to make room for. I climbed out and started unloading. My neighbor Dinah came out to her balcony. She was 73 and had lived here for 40 years. You moving? She called down. Just storing some things, I said. Need help? I almost said no. I was so used to doing everything myself. Actually, yes, that would be great. Dinah came down with her grandson Trevor, who happened to be visiting. He was 22 and built like someone who actually went to the gym. Between the 3 of us, we got everything into the building's storage unit in the basement. It was dusty and smelled like mothballs, but the furniture fit. Family stuff? Dinah asked as we locked up. I nodded. She patted my arm. Family's complicated. Sometimes the people who aren't blood treat you better than the ones who are. I went upstairs and finally turned my phone back on. 47 notifications. I deleted all of them without reading. Then I ordered Chinese food and fell asleep on my couch at 8:30 p.m. I woke up at 3:00 a.m. to my phone ringing. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again. On the 5th try, I answered. What? Honey, please, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You can't just cut us off over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? You told me there was no room for me. That was pretty clear. I was trying to accommodate everyone. Aunt Linda's new relationship is important to her. Your brother's baby is, and I'm not important? Silence. Then, of course you are. But you're being unreasonable. Taking all that furniture, my furniture, from my grandmother. Who left it to me? She left it for the house. For the family. No, Mom. She left it to me specifically. I have the will. Do you want me to read you the exact line? To my granddaughter. I leave the rocking chair made by my father, the quilt I stitched, and the vanity that belonged to my mother. More silence. You've made your point, she said finally. Can you bring everything back so we can move past this? Move past this? You haven't even apologized. I'm sorry you feel hurt, but I hung up. Anything after the word but doesn't count as an apology. I learned that in therapy. The therapy I'd been going to for 2 years because of my family. Because growing up, I'd been the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over, the one who made myself uncomfortable so everyone else could be happy. My therapist, Dr. Rivera, had been trying to get me to set boundaries for 18 months. You teach people how to treat you, she always said. I'd nod and agree, and then do nothing because I didn't want to rock the boat. Well, I'd just capsized the boat, sunk it, blown it up with dynamite, and I felt good. At work on Monday, I was distracted. I worked at a small marketing firm, handling social media for local businesses. My boss, Cheryl, called me into her office. You okay? You've been staring at that restaurant post for 10 minutes? I told her everything. About the house, the furniture, the family. She listened without interrupting. You know what I did when my sister tried to cut me out of Thanksgiving because her new husband didn't like me? She said when I finished. What? I hosted my own Thanksgiving. Invited everyone I actually liked. Had the best time of my life. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you're born with. I went home that night and did something I'd never done before. I looked up the actual value of the furniture I'd taken. Grandmother's things weren't just sentimental. The vanity was an 1890s piece worth about $4,000. The quilt was hand-stitched with a pattern that made it worth at least $2,000 to the right collector. The rocking chair was made from black walnut by my great-great-grandfather and could sell for $3,500. I had $9,500 worth of furniture sitting in my basement storage unit, more than that if I found the right buyers. Or I could keep it. The things that actually connected me to the grandmother who'd loved me unconditionally. The woman who'd taught me to make clam chowder and told me I was smart and strong and didn't need to shrink myself for anyone. Tuesday, Mom sent a lawyer's letter. Not through email. Actual certified mail. It claimed I had stolen family property and demanded its immediate return. I called the lawyer whose name was on my copy of grandmother's will. Janet Wilson had been practicing for 30 years and had handled all of grandmother's affairs. Did you take anything that wasn't specifically bequeathed to you? She asked. No, just what the will states. Then they don't have a case. Keep that letter. Document everything. And don't give anything back unless you want to. I didn't want to. Wednesday, my brother showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find him standing there with his wife Stephanie and their baby. We need to talk, he said. About you being selfish and hurting Mom? Stephanie rocked the baby and looked uncomfortable. I'd always liked her. She was quiet, kind, the opposite of my brother's usual brash personality. I took what was mine, I said. The house is empty because of you. The house is empty because you all assumed you could push me aside and I'd just take it. I didn't. Mom's devastated. Good. Maybe she'll think twice before deciding one of her children doesn't matter. The baby started crying. Stephanie whispered something to my brother. He ignored her. This is ridiculous. You're tearing the family apart over furniture. I'm not tearing anything apart. You all did that when you excluded me. I'm just refusing to pretend it's okay. We would have made room eventually. When? After Aunt Linda's boyfriend got the guest room? After you took the master? After everyone was settled and I could squeeze into whatever corner was left? I'm tired of being an afterthought. He stood there searching for something to say. Finally, when did you become so bitter? When I realized being nice just meant being a doormat. He left. Stephanie glanced back at me as they walked down the hall. I saw something in her eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or sympathy. She knew what it felt like to be pushed to the edges. Thursday, Aunt Linda called. Your mother is in tears. Do you understand what you've done? I took furniture my grandmother left me. That's what I did. You abandoned your family. My family abandoned me first. They just didn't expect me to notice. She hung up without another word. Friday, I got a call from my cousin Rachel. She was Aunt Linda's daughter, 2 years younger than me. We'd been close as kids. I heard what happened, she said. Everyone's version or the truth? She laughed. I'm not stupid. I know how they operate. Listen, I'm in town next week. Want to grab coffee? We met at a small cafe near my apartment. Rachel looked good, confident. She'd moved to Seattle 3 years ago for a job and rarely came back for family events. I stopped going to things, she admitted. Mom kept trying to set me up with her boyfriend's sons, like I was some kind of trading card. When I told her I was gay, she didn't speak to me for 6 months. I hadn't known. I'm sorry. Don't be. Best thing that ever happened. I met my girlfriend out there. We have a great life. I come back maybe once a year, and that's pushing it. She stirred her coffee. What you did at the beach house? That took guts. Or stupidity. No, guts. I wish I'd had the spine to blow things up like that. Instead, I just faded away quietly. They barely noticed you were gone. Exactly. But you, they'll never forget what you did. And that's power. I thought about that for days. Power. I'd spent my whole life trying to be accommodating, to keep the peace, to make sure everyone else was happy, and it had gotten me a family that didn't respect me, and a mother who thought my time and presence were negotiable. Rachel and I started texting regularly after that. She told me about Seattle, her girlfriend Kara, their life. For the first time, I had someone in the family who actually seemed to care about my life. Not what I could do for them, just me. 2 weeks after I took the furniture, Mom called again. This time, her voice was different, harder. The property taxes are due on the house. Half is yours. Not anymore. I'm out. You can't just watch me. I'm done contributing to something I'm not welcome to use. You're being a child. I'm being someone who values herself. That's new for me, I know. She hung up. I called Janet, the lawyer. Can I stop paying property taxes on a house I don't own? If your name isn't on the deed, you were never legally obligated. Were you paying out of goodwill? Something like that. Then stop. It's their responsibility. I sent Mom an email. Short, professional. As I'm no longer welcome at the family property, I will no longer be contributing to its upkeep, maintenance, or taxes. Best of luck. 3 days later, Aunt Linda sent a group email to the whole family. Subject line, family meeting required. The email detailed how I'd stolen valuable antiques, destroyed family traditions, and abandoned my responsibilities. She proposed we all meet to discuss a path forward. I replied to all, I'm not attending. I took what was legally mine. I stopped paying for a house I'm not allowed to use. If that bothers you, ask yourselves why you thought I'd keep funding your vacation spot while being excluded from it. My phone exploded. Texts from cousins I barely knew. Calls from uncle I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone had an opinion. Most of them were variations of, how dare you, and family doesn't act like this. But there were a few surprises. My cousin Theo texted, good for you. My Aunt Patricia called and said, I always knew they treated you like the help. Glad you finally saw it. And Stephanie, my brother's wife, sent me a message that made me cry. I saw what they did to you. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. I was afraid of causing problems. But you were right. You deserved better. 1 month after the beach house incident, I got an unexpected visitor. Dinah from downstairs knocked on my door holding a plate of cookies. I have a proposition for you, she said. Her grandson Trevor was moving to the city for a new job. He needed a roommate. She'd seen my grandmother's furniture in storage and had an idea. Trevor's renting a 2-bedroom place in Brookline. Beautiful old building. He's looking for someone quiet and responsible. And the place would look stunning with actual furniture instead of IKEA nonsense. I met with Trevor. The apartment was gorgeous. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, big windows overlooking a tree-lined street. It was $1,800 a month, split 2 ways. More than I was paying now, but worth it. Dinah says you have some really nice pieces, Trevor said. My grandmother's. Would it be weird to furnish a shared space with them? Are you kidding? That stuff is beautiful. I was going to buy everything secondhand anyway. This would be way better. I moved in 3 weeks later. The furniture looked perfect. The rocking chair in the corner of the living room, the vanity in my bedroom, the quilt on my bed. For the first time in years, I was surrounded by reminders of the person who loved me most. Trevor was an easy roommate. He traveled for work half the month and was quiet when he was home. We'd cook dinner together sometimes, watch movies, talk about our lives. It was peaceful. Mom called 6 weeks after I moved. Where are you? I stopped by your old apartment. I moved. Where? Brookline. Silence. Then, that's expensive. I got a roommate. It's fine. You're living with some stranger? He's nice, respectful, quiet. Everything a roommate should be. I don't understand how you can afford. Mom, why are you calling? I wanted to talk about Thanksgiving. What about it? We're doing it at the beach house this year. I hope you'll come. We can put everything behind us. I laughed, actually laughed. You're serious? Family is important. We need to move past this. No, I'm not coming. I'm not putting anything behind us. You haven't apologized. You haven't acknowledged what you did. You just want me to pretend it didn't happen so you can feel better about yourself. I said I was sorry you felt hurt. That's not an apology. That's you making my feelings my problem. An actual apology would be, I'm sorry I excluded you. I was wrong. It won't happen again. She didn't say any of those things. Instead, you're being stubborn. I'm being honest, for the first time in my life. And if that makes me stubborn, fine. I hung up before she could respond. Thanksgiving came. I spent it with Trevor, Dinah, Rachel, and Kara, who flew in from Seattle, and 3 other people from my building who didn't have family nearby. We cooked together, laughed, played board games. It was the best Thanksgiving I'd had in years. Meanwhile, I found out later from Rachel, the beach house Thanksgiving was a disaster. Mom had tried to cook grandmother's recipes and failed. My brother and Aunt Linda got into a fight about bedroom assignments. Half the family didn't even show up because the house was too empty and depressing without furniture. December rolled around, Christmas was approaching, and I knew the family pressure would start again. But something had shifted in me. I didn't feel guilty anymore. I felt free. I started dating someone I met at a work conference. His name was David, and he was kind and funny and didn't come with decades of family trauma. On our 3rd date, I told him the whole beach house story. He listened and then said, sounds like you did exactly what you needed to do. Good for you. Not, you should try to fix it, or family is family. Just support. That's when I knew I was building something better than what I'd left behind. Mom sent a Christmas card. Inside was a generic message and a gift card to Target for $50, like she was checking a box on a list. I didn't respond. Instead, I sent cards to Rachel, Theo, Patricia, Stephanie, and a few others who'd actually treated me like a person. I spent Christmas morning opening gifts with Trevor and Dinah. Small things, thoughtful things. A book I'd mentioned wanting, a candle in my favorite scent, A framed photo of me and grandmother that Dinah had found in my storage unit and had professionally restored. I cried when I opened it. She'd be proud of you, Dinah said, standing up for yourself like that. January came, 1 year since I'd last been to the beach house for winter maintenance. I wondered if they'd even thought about the pipes, if they'd checked the heat, if they'd cleared the gutters. My brother called in early February. The house flooded, pipes burst in January. That's terrible. We need help cleaning it up and filing the insurance claim. You've always handled that stuff. Not anymore. Come on, this is serious. There's thousands of dollars in damage. Then you should probably call a professional or figure it out yourself, like I had to figure things out when you excluded me. Are you really going to hold a grudge forever? I'm not holding a grudge. I'm just done being the person who fixes everything for people who don't appreciate me. He hung up. I didn't lose sleep over it. In March, I got a promotion at work. More money, more responsibility, more respect. Cheryl took me out for celebratory drinks. You've been different these last few months, she said. More confident, more direct. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. What I was doing was simple. I was valuing myself. I was setting boundaries. I was building a life with people who actually wanted me in it. April brought my birthday, 29. Usually my family would do a big dinner at some restaurant Mom picked. I'd be expected to act grateful while they gave me generic gifts and spent most of the meal talking about themselves. This year, I had a small party at my apartment. Rachel flew in again. David came with flowers. Trevor made his famous lasagna. Dinah brought cake. We played games and talked and laughed until midnight. I didn't hear from my mother until 3 days after my birthday. She texted, "Sorry I missed your birthday. Things have been busy." She'd never missed my birthday before. Not once. The message was clear. If I wasn't going to come back into the fold, I'd be forgotten. I blocked her number. May was beautiful. David and I took a weekend trip to the Cape, not to the family house, to a different town entirely. We stayed at a bed and breakfast, walked on the beach, ate lobster rolls. It was perfect, peaceful, everything a vacation should be. On our last night, we walked on the beach at sunset. Do you ever regret it? David asked. The beach house thing? Walking away? Sometimes I wonder if I could have handled it differently. But no, I don't regret it. They showed me who they were. I believed them. He squeezed my hand. For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. In June, my lease with Trevor was coming up for renewal. We decided to find a bigger place together, something we could really make our own. We found a 3-bedroom in Somerville. More space, a backyard, room for all of grandmother's furniture, and more. I finally felt like I had a real home, not a place I was crashing at, not somewhere temporary, a home. July marked 1 year since the beach house incident. I thought about it differently now. Not as the day I blew up my family, as the day I chose myself. Rachel called on the anniversary. How are you doing? Good. Really good, actually. I heard Mom sold the beach house. That stopped me. What? Yeah. Couldn't afford the taxes and upkeep without your help. And after the flood damage, it was too much. She sold it last month. The house grandmother had loved. The house that had been in our family for 40 years. Gone. I waited for the guilt to hit. The regret. The sense that I destroyed something precious. But all I felt was sad. Sad that it had come to that. Sad that they'd valued pride over family. Sad that they'd lost something beautiful because they couldn't admit they were wrong. Are you okay? Rachel asked. Yeah, I am. It's just, it wasn't supposed to end like that. No, but they made their choices, just like you made yours. The difference is, you're happy. She was right. August brought unexpected news. Aunt Patricia passed away. Heart attack at 67. I went to the funeral. It was the first time I'd seen my mother and brother in over a year. Mom looked older, tired. She saw me and her eyes filled with tears. She started to walk toward me. I turned and walked the other way. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. At the reception, my brother cornered me by the coffee table. This is ridiculous. Aunt Patricia would have wanted us to be together. Aunt Patricia called me after the beach house incident and told me she was proud of me for finally standing up for myself. So I think she'd understand exactly what I'm doing. His face reddened. You've changed. Yeah, I have. I like who I am now. I walked away. Stephanie caught me on my way out. Can we talk? Privately? We stepped outside. She was holding their daughter, now 18 months old. I wanted to apologize, she said. For that day we came to your apartment. For not speaking up when they excluded you. For being a coward. You weren't. I was. I knew it was wrong. I saw how they treated you. And I said nothing because I didn't want to make waves. But watching you walk away from all of it, that took courage I don't have. She shifted the baby on her hip. I'm thinking about leaving him. My heart stopped. Your brother? She nodded. He's like them. More and more every day. He talks to me the way your mom talks to you, like I'm supposed to be grateful for whatever scraps of respect I get. I don't want my daughter growing up thinking that's normal. I gave her my number. If you need anything, a place to stay, someone to talk to, anything. She hugged me, careful not to crush the baby between us. Thank you. I left the funeral feeling strange. Not victorious. Not vindicated. Just sad. Sad for what could have been if they'd just treated me like I mattered. September came. David and I had been together for almost 9 months. Things were getting serious. He met Trevor and Dinah and Rachel. They all loved him. He fit into my chosen family perfectly. One night he asked, "Do you think you'll ever reconcile with them?" I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me knows they haven't changed. They want me to come back on their terms, to pretend nothing happened, to go back to being the family doormat. And you won't do that. I can't do that. Not anymore. He nodded. Then don't. You deserve people who treat you well all the time, not just when it's convenient for them. October brought a surprise. Stephanie left my brother. She moved into a shelter with their daughter for 2 weeks, then found an apartment. She called me crying. I did it. I finally did it. How are you holding up? Scared, but free. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. My brother blamed me, according to Rachel, said I'd poisoned Stephanie against him, that I was destroying the family one person at a time. I didn't care what he thought anymore. Stephanie and I started meeting for coffee every week. She was building a new life, just like I had. It was hard and scary and sometimes overwhelming, but she was happier than I'd ever seen her. November brought Thanksgiving again, year 2 without my family. I hosted this time. Bigger apartment meant more people. Trevor, Dinah, David, Rachel, and Kara, Stephanie and her daughter, and 6 other friends who'd become family. We cooked for 2 days. The apartment smelled like turkey and pie and laughter. Over dinner, Dinah raised her glass. I want to make a toast to found family, the people who choose to love us, not because they have to, but because they want to. Everyone raised their glasses. I looked around the table at faces that made me feel valued and seen and loved. This was family, real family. December was quiet. David and I spent Christmas together, just the 2 of us. We exchanged gifts in our pajamas, made breakfast, watched movies. It was simple and perfect. I didn't miss the forced holiday gatherings, the tension, the feeling of being tolerated instead of wanted. In January, 2 years after the beach house incident, I got a letter in the mail, from Mom, handwritten. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. It was long, pages of her explaining herself, how she'd been trying to make everyone happy, how she hadn't realized how much she'd hurt me, how selling the house had made her understand what she'd lost, how she wanted to fix things, how she was sorry, really sorry. Not sorry you felt hurt, just sorry. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. I needed time to think. February brought more changes. David proposed. Small, intimate, perfect. Just us at the apartment with grandmother's rocking chair in the background. I said yes. We set a date for next fall. I made a list of who I wanted there. Trevor, Dinah, Rachel and Kara, Stephanie, my friends from work, people who'd shown up for me, people who'd proven they wanted me in their lives. I didn't include my mother or brother or Aunt Linda on the first draft. I thought about adding Mom after her letter, but something held me back. In March, I responded to Mom's letter. I kept it short. Thank you for apologizing. I appreciate you taking the time to explain yourself. I need more time before I'm ready to have you back in my life, if that time ever comes. I hope you can respect that. She wrote back immediately. Understood. Would wait. Would be there when I was ready. We started emailing occasionally, short updates, nothing deep, but it was something. My brother never apologized. According to Mom, he didn't think he'd done anything wrong. That told me everything I needed to know. April brought my 30th birthday. David threw me a surprise party. Everyone I loved was there. Mom wasn't invited. She sent a card and a thoughtful gift, a framed photo of me and grandmother from when I was 7. I'd never seen it before. I cried when I opened it. Maybe she was changing. Maybe. May came. Wedding planning was in full swing. I was stressed but happy. David was patient and supportive. Trevor helped with venue research. Rachel took charge of the bachelorette party planning. Everything was falling into place. Then Stephanie called. Your brother wants to see his daughter. He's filing for custody. Can he win? I don't know. I don't have money for a good lawyer. How much do you need? I helped her pay for a lawyer. A good one. We went to court in June. My brother's lawyer tried to paint Stephanie as unstable, as someone who'd been influenced by bitter family members to destroy her marriage. I watched him lie and manipulate and play the victim. The judge didn't buy it. Joint custody, which wasn't ideal, but better than what could have happened. Stephanie cried in the parking lot after. I can't thank you enough. You don't have to thank me. This is what family does. Real family. July brought a decision. I invited Mom to the wedding. Not my brother. Not Aunt Linda. Just Mom. With conditions. She could come if she understood she wasn't running anything, wasn't making demands, wasn't trying to force a reconciliation with everyone else. She agreed. August was a blur of final wedding preparations. Mom and I talked on the phone a few times. Awkward at first, then easier. We weren't close like before. We might never be, but we were trying. September arrived. 1 month until the wedding. I was excited and nervous. David was calm and steady. He'd become my anchor in ways I never expected. Trevor asked if he could walk me down the aisle. I cried and said yes. The week before the wedding, I went to visit grandmother's grave. I hadn't been since right after she died. I brought flowers and sat on the grass next to her headstone. I did it, I told her. I stood up for myself, like you always told me to. It cost me almost everything, but I built something better. I hope you'd be proud. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves in the trees above me. It felt like an answer. October came, wedding day. I woke up in the apartment surrounded by Rachel, Kara, Stephanie, and Dinah. We drank coffee and laughed and got ready together. I wore a simple dress. Grandmother's quilt was draped over the chair in my room. Her rocking chair sat in the corner. Even though she wasn't there, she was everywhere. The ceremony was small, 50 people. Everyone who mattered. Mom sat in the 3rd row, crying quietly. She looked older, but softer somehow, less rigid. Trevor walked me down the aisle, beaming with pride. David waited at the altar, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. We said our vows. Simple, honest, real. I promised to choose him every day. He promised to choose me. At the reception, Mom approached me carefully. You look beautiful. Grandmother would have loved this. I know. Silence. Then, I'm proud of you for building all this, for finding people who treat you the way you deserve. Thank you. She touched my arm gently. I'm sorry for everything. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know I mean it. I was wrong. I made you feel like you didn't matter, and that's unforgivable. It's not unforgivable, but it's not forgotten either. She nodded. That's fair. We stood there, not quite hugging, not quite separate. A work in progress. David and I honeymooned in Italy, 2 weeks of pasta and wine and exploring ancient cities. We came back refreshed, ready to start our married life. We moved into a house in Cambridge. 3 bedrooms, a yard, space for grandmother's furniture, and new memories. It felt right. November marked 3 years since the beach house incident. I thought about it sometimes. How different my life was now. How much I'd lost. How much I'd gained. On Thanksgiving, I hosted again. Even bigger this time. Mom came. It was strange having her there with my chosen family, but it worked. She stayed quiet, helpful, kind. She didn't try to take over or make it about her. She just participated. Progress. December brought news. Aunt Linda had a heart attack. She survived but was in the hospital. Mom called to tell me, she's asking for you. Why? I think she wants to apologize. I went to the hospital. Aunt Linda looked small in the bed, fragile. She'd always been so loud and commanding. Seeing her weak was jarring. You came, she said when she saw me. Mom said you wanted to talk. She nodded slowly. I wanted to say I'm sorry for how I treated you, for supporting your mother when she excluded you, for calling you selfish. You weren't selfish, you were right. I sat down in the chair next to her bed. Why now? Almost dying makes you think about things. About the people you've hurt. The bridges you've burned. I burned a lot of bridges with you. I'd like to try to rebuild, if you'll let me. I didn't answer right away. I thought about holding grudges, about forgiveness, about what I wanted my life to look like going forward. I'm willing to try, I finally said. But it won't be like it was before. I'm not going back to being the family doormat. Not for anyone. I understand. I wouldn't want you to. We talked for an hour. Really talked. She told me about her own regrets, her own failures, how watching me walk away had made her question everything about how our family operated. It wasn't a complete healing, but it was a start. January came. Year 4. I was 31, married, happy, building a life that felt authentic. My brother never apologized. I heard through Rachel that he'd remarried quickly, someone who put up with his behavior. I felt bad for her, but it wasn't my problem to solve. Mom and I had dinner once a month. We were rebuilding slowly. Some months were better than others. Sometimes we'd argue about old patterns creeping back in, but we kept trying. That was more than I'd expected. Stephanie was thriving. She'd gone back to school, was studying social work. She wanted to help other women leave bad situations. Her daughter was happy and healthy. She'd started calling me aunt, which made my heart swell every time. February brought a surprise. I found out I was pregnant. David and I hadn't been trying, but we hadn't been preventing either. We were both shocked and thrilled. I called Rachel first, then Dinah, then Stephanie. Mom was one of the last to know. I was still protecting my joy from her, making sure it was solid before letting her near it. She cried when I told her, happy tears. I'll be better, she promised. As a grandmother, I'll be better than I was as a mother. I know you'll try. The pregnancy was smooth. I worked until I couldn't fit behind my desk anymore. David read parenting books obsessively. Trevor started baby-proofing the house without being asked. Dinah knitted blankets. Rachel sent packages from Seattle. Stephanie threw me a shower. Mom attended and behaved perfectly. She didn't try to take over or make demands. She just helped where asked and stepped back when not needed. More progress. In October, I gave birth to a daughter. We named her Elena after my grandmother. She was perfect, tiny and pink and mine. When I held her for the first time, I made a promise. She would never question whether she mattered. She would never be made to feel like an afterthought. She would know her value from day one. Mom met Elena when she was 3 days old. She held her granddaughter with tears streaming down her face. She looks just like your grandmother. I know. David and I fell into the chaos of new parenthood. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, the overwhelming love that comes with a tiny human depending on you. Through it all, my chosen family showed up. Trevor handled midnight diaper runs to the store. Dinah brought meals. Rachel video called every day to check in. Stephanie watched Elena so I could shower. Mom came weekly, always asking permission before helping. November came again. 4 years since the beach house. I looked at my life and barely recognized it from where I'd been. I had a husband who loved me, a daughter I adored, a family I'd chosen, a mother I was slowly learning to trust again, a home filled with grandmother's furniture and new memories. On Thanksgiving, I hosted with a 2-month-old baby. It was chaotic and messy and beautiful. David carved the turkey while I nursed Elena. Mom held the baby while I ate. Trevor led a toast. Dinah told embarrassing stories. Rachel and Kara announced they were getting married. Stephanie's daughter ran around the house laughing. This was what I'd fought for. This exact moment. This feeling of being surrounded by people who loved me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. People who showed up, who made room, who treated me like I mattered. After everyone left, David and I sat on the couch with Elena sleeping between us. The house was a disaster. Dishes everywhere. Food remnants on the table. Toys scattered across the floor. This was perfect, David said. Yeah, it really was. I looked at grandmother's rocking chair in the corner, the quilt draped over the back, the vanity visible through our bedroom door. I'd fought for these things, not because they were valuable, but because they represented being chosen, being loved, being seen. And I'd won, not by destroying my family, but by refusing to destroy myself for them, by drawing a line and saying, this is where I matter, by walking away from people who couldn't see my worth, by building something better with people who could. December was quiet. First Christmas with Elena. We kept it small. Just the 3 of us on Christmas morning, then extended family in the afternoon. Mom brought thoughtful gifts and didn't overstep. Aunt Linda came, still recovering but trying. My brother didn't. I didn't miss him. On New Year's Eve, David and I stayed home with Elena. We didn't need parties or countdown or champagne. We had everything we needed right here. At midnight, we kissed while our daughter slept in her crib surrounded by grandmother's quilt. What do you want for the new year? David asked. This. Just more of this. That's not very ambitious. I laughed. 5 years ago, I didn't know if I'd ever have this. A family that actually wanted me. People who showed up. A life where I didn't have to make myself small. This is everything I wanted. He pulled me closer. then that's what we'll keep building. And we did. In the years that followed, things continued to evolve. Mom became the grandmother she'd never been as a mother, present, engaged, respectful of boundaries. We'd never be as close as we were before the beach house, but we had something different now, something more honest. Aunt Linda and I built a cautious friendship. She worked hard to earn back trust, and I learned that people could change if they really wanted to. My brother remained absent, which was fine. Some relationships weren't worth saving. Stephanie finished her degree and started working with a women's shelter. She met someone new, someone kind who treated her the way she deserved. Her daughter grew up seeing her mother choose herself, choose better. The cycle broke. Rachel and Kara got married in Seattle. I was in the wedding. We stayed close despite the distance, proving that real family isn't about proximity. Trevor eventually moved in with his girlfriend, but stayed in our lives. Dinah became Elena's honorary grandmother, the one who spoiled her with cookies and taught her to play cards. Elena grew up surrounded by love, real love, the kind that showed up in actions, not just words, the kind that made room, the kind that said, you matter every single day. And that beach house, the one that started everything, I drove past it once. Years later, new owners had painted it blue and added a deck. It looked different, felt different. It wasn't ours anymore. It had never really been ours. Not in the way that mattered. Because a house is just a building. Family is what you build inside it. And I'd built something better than I ever had in that Cape Cod house with 6 bedrooms and not enough room for me. I'd built a home, a real one, where everyone who entered knew they mattered, where no one had to earn their place, where love wasn't conditional on being convenient. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from people who don't value you. Not because you're giving up, but because you're making room for people who will. That's what I did that day when I loaded a U-Haul with my grandmother's furniture and drove away from a family that had decided I was optional. I chose myself. And in doing so, I found everything I'd been looking for. A family that chose me back.